Hi guys, what's up? My name is David and welcome back to my channel. So I've been thinking, and today I would like to talk about labels and how I feel about them. And I do not mean labels on a jar of peanut butter. I mean labels when it comes to personal identity. Now I am planning to make a whole video on the concept of identity, but that requires a bit more research than this one, so I'm gonna put it off until I have more time to do that. But today I want to talk about labels and how I don't like them. And I know that coming from an LGBTQ person might sound weird, like, what do you mean you don't like labels? You label yourself. But no, not entirely. While I do sometimes use these general labels like trans and gay to describe my gender identity and my sexuality, it's not because I 100% identify with the exact meaning of those terms. It just means that when I say these words about my identity, it makes it easier for other people to understand what that is. I'm not gonna give a weirdly detailed explanation of how exactly my gender works because no one cares, and I don't care either. So even though if someone finds that these ultra specific labels that exist give them some kind of peace or closure or make them understand what they are, that is great. But for me, the problem with these labels is that the moment you do something that is not entirely included in the description of that label, either you yourself immediately have to try to find another label because that one doesn't fit anymore, or other people think that label does not fit you anymore because you're not everything that that label is. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are straight. You have been with people of the opposite gender for, I don't know, 30 years of your life. And one day you find a person of the same gender attractive. Now, if you don't really care about those labels, you just go on living your life. You acknowledge that you found this one person of the same sex attractive, but that does not change how you feel about yourself because all the other people you've ever found attractive were people of the opposite sex, and you continue doing that. But if you're very pressed into believing that you are in fact heterosexual and you get feelings for someone of the same sex, you might start questioning your entire identity, either trying to prove to yourself that you still are in fact heterosexual, or trying to find, oh, okay, am I gay now? Am I bisexual now? Am I pansexual? What am I? So if you just don't care about those labels, that is not an issue to you. And the same goes for gender identity. If you identify as a trans masculine, and if you don't care too much about that label, you won't have any problems doing something that maybe is not implied in the definition of that label. Like if you're confident enough in yourself, you can still, wear feminine things while still identifying as trans masc and not having to stick to this specific label or the requirements to fit into that label. And if you're just unlabeled, you don't have any of these problems. Like, let's say you're non-binary. Of course, there's still these weird social pressures for non-binary people to be androgynous in a very specific way, but the idea of being non-binary literally makes you able to do whatever you want and it still will fit into this label. But it still is a label. Honestly, I don't know where I'm going with this, but people should just not care that much about labels, especially when it comes to how other people choose to label themselves. Like, if I tell someone I identify as a trans man, and then I somewhere mention I do not have anything against using they them pronouns, and people are like, so you're not a trans man. Like, no, that is not how it works. I can use both he him and they them pronouns and still be a trans man because I do not care about fitting the requirements of that label or not. And I have medically transitioned from being assigned female at birth to having mostly male hormones in my body. So I am transgender, or even transsexual, someone would say. But that does not have to limit my personal expression whatsoever. And I'm just tired of people say like, oh, you're not really this, or you're not really that, or especially when it comes to bisexuality, people just trying to erase bisexual people on both sides of the spectrum, you know, like when they are dating a person of the same sex, it's like, oh, so you're gay. And if they are dating someone of the opposite sex, they're like, oh, so you're straight. Like, no, that is not how it works. And you don't get to dictate someone else's identity. Like, come on. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that people just care way too much. Like, why is it, or even in like these questionnaires where the first question you get is like, what is your gender? Like, why does that matter? Why the fuck do you care? Unless it's something like medical, where you need to know what kind of hormones and genitals I have in my body. You do not need to care how I was assigned at birth and how I identify as. Like, that's the problem. It's that there are still these differences between men and non-men in society. And by continuing to make gender identity but also biological sex so important, these differences will never go away. And some people don't want these differences to go away. And I mean, sure, like, yeah, of course there's still gonna be slight biological differences between people born male and born female, but the thing is that shouldn't matter so much. We could have chosen to like basically split humanity in two on completely different things that are not gender related. And we have done that, unfortunately, with things like race and religion. But what I mean is the difference between someone with a vagina and someone with a penis is just as small of a difference as someone with a round head versus someone with a square head, you know? Like, there are so many, or someone with long legs versus someone with short legs. Like, it's not, there are so many variations of humans, and we still choose to see this male female binary as the most important thing ever. Like, when will that end? Well, sorry for that rant. I'm just tired of these unnecessarily restricting labels that we put on ourselves and future generations, like since the moment they are born. And if any one of you has ever read Judith Butler and her book Gender Trouble, I think it's called, they talk about how biological sex is also a social construct, not only gender identity, because a certain person that is not you decides what your identity is going to be and how society is going to see you for the rest of your life based on your genitals. And that's fucking weird. But yeah, we still continue to do that, and it still seems to be important whether a child is born a girl or a boy. And until that stops being such a big issue, then I don't know. So let me know your thoughts about this, because it can make me really angry sometimes how much people care about these things. And it's just, it's not the LGBTQ community who keeps forcing these things on children. No, it's general society. It is cishet people who keeps reinforcing these ideas about gender identity and all these labels, and we just try to navigate them by telling them that is not how we feel, but then they force us to feel a certain way, and sometimes we try to conform to their norms, and sometimes we find other norms, other boxes that already pre-exist to fit ourselves into because that's what we think is closest to how we identify. But at the end of the day, people should not be segregated into different boxes. And, you know, like I said, if someone chooses to do that, chooses to put themselves in a box, then that's fine. If that box is some kind of safe space, then great. But it should not restrict you from doing other things in your life because you have to adhere to the norms of that box. So, yeah, thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will hopefully see you next week if I have time to film. Bye bye.